Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel where I share ideas in a number of different fields. One of my favorite, of course, is woodwork. And in this video I want to show you in detail how to make an articulating arm for hollow turning on the lathe. I previously posted a video showing articulated arm that I made out of wood, which is this one right here. And it turned out to be very successful and can be built for probably less than $20. This one that I want to make for detailed explanation, I'm going to make out of oak, another little more substantial hardwood. It doesn't take a lot of wood to make one of these. I just took this board here. It's 2 feet long and I'll probably get most of the parts out of it. This one here was the first one I built attaching to the quill on the tailstock. It requires a fairly long bed, so I'm going to make this one and it'll have its own separate mount. So it'll be the part 2, and then I'll make another one that attaches to the tool post, which won't require much of a bed at all. But anyway, it doesn't take a lot of material, and I find that it's worked very well. So I'll do short steps in this video and show you pictures as I go along. So the first step on this, I'm going to cut the section off here for the 2 side pieces, and then I'm going to cut 2 pieces off of next, and I'll laminate those together to make these parts. I thought on this one I would make it out of just a board, and so it wouldn't require the thicker stock here. So this is just wood that I had in the shop here. But anyway, I'm going to get started here. I'm kind of excited to do this next one here, and learned quite a bit on making the prototype. Now I'm going to make a professional model, still for a very low cost. Anyway, just keep tuned and on this video. And I'll be showing a plan at the end. Okay, I've cut the pieces for the arms and for the other section there. These pieces here will be for here. I've thinned them down considerably, and gotten 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to screw these together, which I'll explain in the next little video there, where the next segment when I drill the holes for the bearings. And these pieces here for these pieces here, and I've drilled them here, and I'm going to screw those together, glue. And then I'm going to put screws on each end so it doesn't slip out of place when it's clamping there. So because I want these nice and even here. It's very simple. Just put 2 screws in it and they won't slip apart. And I've got 1 extra piece that will come in handy if there's not enough room for space for everything out of this piece. Because I'll need some extra pieces over here when I make the attachment to the post that I'm going to make there. Anyway, we'll just continue on here. I'll get these prepared and show you how to bore the bearings. Okay, I've got this piece glued together, put the 2 screws in there. Yeah, it certainly worked great. I just put those in and then clamped it up. No problems with it shifting from side to side there. Anytime you have something you want to glue and you're able to put a screw in it, or maybe on some waste wood or whatever, go ahead and do it. Thought I'd mention here I don't know if any of you are using these glue bottles. They're called GluBot, G-L-U-B-O-T. Look those up on the internet. They're just fantastic for... I've got the two side pieces also screwed together and laid out for the centers of the where the bearings are going to go. Now I've got these little drills. I don't know if you use those or not. If you can see that, it's just it's a double-ended bit. They're called panel bits for drilling sheet metal for pop rivets, etc. But they're very stiff, and the way they're sharpened on the end, they'll drill wherever you put it. So I'm going to use this bit to drill a hole through each of my layout points there. I'm using, I believe, 8.5 inches center to center there. And so I'll go ahead and drill this hole, and then I'll be drilling the bearings and come back and tell you a little bit about that procedure. Okay, I'm all set up to counter bore for the bearings. The bearing that I'm using is a 6201 bearing, and by taking a 1 5/8 Forester bit, you can drill a hole that then these can be just pressed in. The reason I use the very stiff panel bit is so I could drill a hole all the way through, and then I just tip it over and I drill a hole on the other side, so they're perfectly matched in distance from end to end if you have these screwed together. Other than that, I'll just go ahead and drill a hole on the other side so you can see how it goes. I've also set the stop to stop drilling, so this will just come up just a little bit above, or it could be flush as well. Now we have two holes drilled on opposite sides, and when I take this out, take this apart, I'm also going to mark this so I get the ends in the right place. They'll match, and you just flip it over and there. The next thing I'm going to do is just change this bit and counter bore the center here just a small amount. So this part, it'll sit on the race on the outside, but I want just a little bit of clearance for the inner race. I'll do that next. Okay, I'm all set up to counter bore. I did make a mistake. I said that this was 1 5/8, but it's actually 1 1/4 inches. If you have metric bits, well, you can match it up to a metric size. So I put a 3/4 in here. And I'm just going to lightly counter bore that one. Just a few shaving is all you need there, just to make sure there's clearance for the center race. Okay, I got all the holes drilled, counter bored, ready to put in the bearings. I've marked the one end so I know which end will go together to get perfectly matched. I've also drawn the half circle where I'll cut it off on the bandsaw. I decided to leave this a little longer in here when I put the bearings in, because on the prototype it's fairly tight fit and it just cracked a little bit there, so I think I can get the bearings in without a crack. So very simple, just use a vise and press them in. I've pressed this one in, and it just slightly raised here, just slightly above is, I think, a good idea there, so we know we got clearance. So we'll just go ahead and do this. Just start it. And there we go. They turn nicely, and they're stuck in. So I'll go ahead and finish this up now. I'll press the other one in, I'll cut this up and get it all sanded. This part's all done. The next step will be to drill the hole where the bolt goes through, right through. The way I found out the best way to do it, these are 12 millimeter inside dimension bearings. So I've taken a 15-30 seconds drill there, and I'm going to drill it from this side first, and then I'm going to, just to make it nice and neat, then I'm going to take a 1/2-inch drill bit. This could be done on the drill press too, but I'll just do it with this, and that will allow clearance for the bolt to go through there. Very, very simple, but effective. Get it nice and center. Drill this side first, using it as a guide, and then just enlarge it with a little bigger drill bit. 1/2 inch is 13 millimeters, so it just enlarges it a little bit larger than the bolt that'll go through there. You have to buy 12 millimeter bolts to assemble this. Well, I was making these parts, the two arms. This was drying. Now that it's dry enough to start working on it. So glue this together first, and then get your arms all done, and you'll be ready to start on this. So I need to make this part here that'll attach to the post on the lathe next, and it's going to be the same length as these pieces here, and it'll have a nice rounded end and a hole on each end. It'll be a duplicate of this, except just a hole and a hole. Then I've got room for another piece here, which will be this piece here. It can be shorter. I'm going to cut it 8 inches, which is just a little shorter than this, and it probably could be shorter than that too. That's you just need enough room here that you can put your boring bar in and clamp it. I kind of overbuilt this one with 2 clamps and that, but it could probably be shortened up considerably there. And then I've got a piece left over, which will be this piece in here for the where it's going to attach to the post that I'm going to build for the lathe there. So I'll get busy with this and get these cut out and sanded. These are all sanded, ready to go. So it's a very quick project, but you'll get hours of enjoyment using it after. Okay, now I'm going to drill the hole on each end of here for that first swing arm there. I'm going to use a brad point type drill, just because it goes into the little dimple that I've made there. You could use the regular metal bit too, it doesn't matter. So I'll just go ahead and drill this. Yeah, I just oscillated that back and forth a little bit there to keep the chips cleaned out of the drill bit there. Anyway, I'll go ahead and do the other one, and then it's just a matter of rounding the ends, and this part will be done. In this step, I'm going to bore the hole for the boring bar. I'm going to start it out with a Forester bit. It cuts quite well on end grain, and I think I can get a nice straight job. Just a matter of setting this in a vise so it's straight up. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to drill it off center slightly, and that will give a little bit more room for when I put the tightening bolts through. So the first one I did, I just drilled it straight on center. I still had enough room, but this time I'm going to drill it just slightly off center, which will give room for these bolts to go through there. And so I'll drill it with this, and then I will use if I had an extender for this, I could continue using this. I'd like to get it down, probably about that far. By using this type of bit, it's very common for woodworkers to have those spade bits. I could get down a full 4 inches quite easily there, but it probably could have been done completely with this, but the Forester bit just drills so much nicer there, makes an accurate hole. Anyway, we'll go on to the next step. That was quite easy, actually. It didn't take very long. Now that we have the hole bored for the boring bar here, we're going to put 2 holes through for the clamps to tighten it into position. So what I've done is just laid the bolt on there to see where I'd like it. Draw a little line down across the top, and then 2 points where I'm going to drill a hole there for this for these bolts here. I've also marked the depth, so I know how far down it is. I've found the center line of the hole and brought it down and put a little dip there. I'm going to drill a hole through there. That's for a pin, just in case you want to make a slot on the end of the boring bar, and then that will go right in there and it won't slip at all. You would hardly need 2 bolts on there, but just a possibility. I didn't use that pin and boring bar for the prototype because it held it quite secure. So I'll go ahead and drill these 2 holes. This will be for this bolt, and then a pin, which will be 3/16 to go into that one. And then we'll cut the slot here. I'll show you how to do that on the table saw, so that'll be the next step. In this step, I've set the saw up to cut a slot. I've already drilled the holes for the bolts and for the little pin there, as you can see. Now I just want to cut a slot in the end there, so when you tighten the bolts up, it'll squeeze the boring bar. You can see it, the hole being off center gave a little bit more room for the bolts there. And I drilled these holes slightly larger than the 1/4, 1/64, so it will slide in easily, and as it squeezes, it won't bind up at all there. I've set the table saw to the height of the top of the hole here, and I've also marked it as far as I'm going to push it into the saw. So that's a very simple operation, and if you have a smaller saw than the 10-inch, put it on. The prototype I did, I put in a smaller one, but this time I'm going to try it just with the standard blade. So I'll cut that, and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, I've got the basic parts done now. The first swing arm, the in-between swing arms with the bearings in it, and then the end part which holds the boring bar. Now I've just a little closer here, I've rounded the ends off here a little bit, like I did on the prototype. Holes are drilled. There's the slot that so it can squeeze, and I can squeeze it with my hand. Even though it's oak, I can squeeze it with my hand, so it probably will work quite well. The bottom of the hole is right here, but the slot ends right there. And then the hole at the end goes through here, and so there's plenty of distance here to have this nice and solid, and lots of pressure on there with the bearings there. So that one's basically completed.